Okay.
Testing.
Thank you. So, Bhante, what you called the Buddha's cosmos, the co-conceptualization of these realms and their structure, is this something that the Buddha realized as part of his enlightenment, or were these historically cultural beliefs prior to the Buddha's time?
I mean, it's not said that the Buddha actually realized or saw this cosmos on the occasion of his enlightenment, but it said that the Buddha, with the divine eye, he sees beings passing away and taking rebirth in accordance with their karma. So he must have seen different realms according to which the beings take rebirth in accordance with their karma. And it seems to me that some of the realms are bringing in pre-Buddhistic conceptions, or at least some of the devas or the deities, pre-Buddhist deities, are being brought in and assigned positions within this cosmology. Like I mentioned, the Vedic deity Indra gets assigned becomes Sakka, the king of the Tavatimsa Deva world. Some of the beings that were accepted by the Indian culture of the period, the Nagas, the Yakshas, Gandharvas, get assigned to positions within the heaven of the four great kings. And so, in some respects, it's accommodative, but I'd say that the distinction between like the sense sphere heavens, the form realm, the formless realm, this is quite, to my knowledge, it's quite distinctive of Buddhism, and I don't think we find parallels to this in any of the contemporary spiritual systems. Of course, we have very little information about them. Even the texts of Jainism come from a considerably later period. Yeah, so most of it seems to be quite original to the Buddha and quite different. Of course, there are some correspondences, but in its details, quite different from the cosmology of Brahmanism and of Jainism. Any further? Okay. Osman?
The virtues of faith and virtue and learning, and it seems like it's put on almost on the same level as like the Noble Eightfold Path or the Seven Enlightenment Factors, because it leads to, it's one of the major elements in becoming an arahant or getting. Is there any relationship?
Okay, faith, the factors faith, virtue,
learning,
faith, virtuous behavior, and
the learning,
and
renunciation and wisdom. Those five.
Yeah.
To me,
they're not exactly. I said that there's not an exact correspondence between them. So one could say that maybe we could say that there are two different sets of wholesome qualities, and it seems that the Noble Eightfold Path is intended more as sort of the direct path to the end of dukkha or the attainment of nibbana, whereas the set of those five excellent qualities have a more general function. You know, they can be the supporting conditions for rebirth in the higher realms as well as for the attainment of nibbana. Whereas the Noble Eightfold Path, to my knowledge, it's always taught, this is the way to the cessation of suffering, or this is the way to nibbana, or this is the way to the destruction of the defilements. I don't think that it's ever said that the Noble Eightfold Path is the way to be reborn in the Deva worlds or the Brahma worlds. Yeah. Hongba, over here.
Bhante, so Mara, the evil one, he is said to reside in one of those 6 upper realms of the sense world.
Yeah.
In the realm of the Devas, delighting in creation. Now, in order to get to one of those realms, you have to attain all 10 wholesome actions. Attain generosity, a certain level of virtues and wisdom.
Yeah.
How is it possible that he regressed so much that he becomes like the world's most evil being?
Sometimes one just has to say, I don't know. Okay, Mara, this is, I think, the explanation given in the commentaries. It said that he occupies part of this is the 6th sense sphere, heaven, the sphere or the plane of the gods who exercise control over the creations of others. So it said that he occupies part of that realm the way a rebel prince will occupy a frontier land on the outskirts of the kingdom of his father. If the prince is rebelling against his father, he'll take possession of part of the frontier or the outskirts of the country and set up his camp there. So it said that Mara has set up camp on the outskirts of the heaven of the gods who control the creations of others. To be reborn in that heaven, it would seem one needs a great deal of merit. So how then does Mara become an evil one who is intent on impeding the spiritual progress of people in the human realm? I don't know. But it seems to have certain parallel with the case of Satan in Christianity, who was originally an angel, Lucifer. Lucifer means that this relates to the word light. So Lucifer was originally a god of light who became proud and arrogant and tried to violate, maybe to usurp the position of God. And so he was expelled from heaven and then fell and became the overlord of hell.
So that must have mean that until one have reached at least stream entry, even if one is born into like one of the highest Devas realm, there's still no guarantee that one won't fall back.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, until one reaches stream entry, one could be reborn in any of the heavenly realms, and then one can fall down and take rebirth and back into the human realm, and then from the human realm down into any of the realms of suffering.
Thank you.
So it said. Okay, Richard? Wait till the microphone comes.
As for that, wouldn't you think that the explanation is essentially historical, in the same way that it is with Christianity, in the same way that Christianity took over lots of pre-Christian deities? Yeah. I think in this case, Buddhism is taking over a pre-existing Hindu pantheon, and in earlier religions, when you had a large cast of pantheism, you'd have a god for each particular function. Yeah. And the idea was not so much that a god was good or evil, yeah, as that a god was effective, and you had to be on the right side of a deity, yeah, in order to get what you needed. That is, you needed the help, the assistance of, yeah, the god of agriculture, yeah, for your onions to grow, and you needed the assistance of the god of thunder to get rain at the right time and so on.
Yeah.
So my guess is that Mara is simply a Hindu remainder from a god who was effective and not initially regarded as either good or evil, or rather as was ambivalent, that is, was both good or evil depending upon which side of Mara you pleased, right? And so but these beliefs, I think, that more modern religions tend to have to negotiate their way amongst the pre-existing beliefs and deities. And so they kind of pick them up and they change the meanings of them somewhat, but they're not entirely in command of the meanings that people attribute to them, because the people who are converting generally keep a lot of their prior beliefs, and because they have relatives who have those beliefs and so on, and they're enmeshed in a social system that has those beliefs, and so they go on maintaining features of the pre-existing beliefs, right? And the newer religion is forced to adapt itself to those.
Yeah. So, to my knowledge, Mara doesn't exist in either the Vedic religion or in any of the earlier developments out of the Vedas, even up to mature, developed Hinduism. It seems to me Mara is a specifically Buddhist deity or figure. No, I haven't. Yeah. I don't have the equipment or the ability to do historical research on the evolution of the idea of Mara.
Well,
there might be some studies about, but let me just continue.
Yeah.
And, okay, within the Buddha's text, Mara always serves the function of obstructing the progress of any aspirant for attainment of higher realization or liberation. He trails or follows the future Buddha when he's a bodhisattva, trying to obstruct his effort to reach enlightenment. After the Buddha reaches enlightenment, Mara still doesn't acknowledge this and still tries to tempt the Buddha till he gives up. Mara tries to obstruct other disciples of the Buddha who are making an effort to realize enlightenment. Mara, it said, has the three daughters whose names are symbolic, of course. Raga, passion; Tanha, craving. I think the third one is rati, sort of sensual delight, or abhirati, sensual delight. Okay, and then the idea that Mara inhabits a particular heavenly world, as I said, this comes in the commentaries within the canonical texts themselves. Mara isn't assigned to any particular realm of existence. He's just a figure who appears on key occasions in the life of the Buddha or in relation to other disciples.
Well, the kind of analogy I'm thinking of, is the role of the dove in Christianity. The dove is supposed to be the Holy Ghost. Okay, that's a pretty august role for a bird to have, right? But it's not that the idea of the Holy Ghost, or the assertion that the Holy Ghost was a dove, or was transformed into a dove or anything like that, pre-existed. What pre-existed was a very common idea that gods could be represented as birds. For instance, that Zeus could be a swan and so on, and the idea that the bird that was holy to the goddess Isis, right, in Syria, was the dove. So that Isis had temples that were holy for the dove, and they were covered with these birds in the same way that there are Hindu temples now that are covered with monkeys or with rats. Okay? And so the thing is that it's not that the image was taken over, the name was changed. That is, the effort of what Christianity was doing was it was saying, look, we're more powerful than ISIS. That is, ISIS's animal, her spirit bird, right, is the Holy Ghost, and that's why that bird is holy, and that bird is really on our side, not ISIS. So it's a way of co-opting a pre-existing belief and another religion. So you can go on feeling that doves are holy, right, and use it a different way. That's the kind of analogy that I'm thinking of. That is, it's not a literal. It's not a literal one. It's the use of a pre-existing cultural belief, right, that enables people to redirect their affections or their antipathies, right, in a way that serves the new religion.
Anyway, as far as the origins of Mara, that is an area of which that I'm not really well acquainted with. It's an area that maybe requires research to be done.
Yeah.
And also, it's not mentioned in the Sutta. Maybe we should come back whether there's any questions directly related to...
The essential point I'm trying to make is that religions are not wholly in control of their own mythologies. They tend to... Mythologies get traded around, sort of independent of doctrine.
Okay, any other questions relating directly to the Sutta? Okay, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Sunday, does the sutra suggest that we should make aspiration for our rebirth according to this path?
Yeah, that seems to be the theme of the sutta. So I didn't quite get the question.
Because I think on my own, I don't think I'm going to aspire to be a lower realm, a lower sensual realm deity. I don't see why. And if that's the path, it's a long way to go.
I have to say, I don't see why anybody would want to would aspire to become a lower deity either.
So as a lesson, we're supposed to take a lesson away from the sutta. I'm not quite sure what the lesson should be, because if the lesson is that I should start, because I know I'm in the human realm right now. So am I supposed to make an aspiration and then say that let me go to the lowest level of the sensual realm deity and then go from there?
Oh, I see. Okay, now I see the question. Now, is one supposed to aspire to go in sequence through these different deva worlds? I don't think so. I think the Buddha is offering this as sort of a set of alternative choices that an aspirant could make. But in order so that one could start off, aspiring to become reborn as one of the Brahmas, but in order to fulfill that aspiration, one has to have all of the requirements, which would include, a very mature development of those 5 virtues, and then the attainment of at least the first jhana. What's a little bit puzzling is that if somebody has achieved any of the jhanas, one would think that they would have the supporting conditions or the requisites to immediately aspire to reach the destruction of the asanas, and that one should be able to achieve it.
Because it's clear that the sutta would encourage us to develop the guna. There's no problem. But it doesn't really say too much about that part. And so it's really, the sutta is about the aspiration. And so another conclusion I can get is that knowing that we have to go through this path, we might as well just go to the final one and skip through all the steps and make that aspiration. But then without the sufficient condition, you can't get there either.
Of course, one needs the sufficient condition.
Right. So this sutta is puzzling to me.
Okay, one could see that But those who don't yet have mature enough faculties to reach the paths and fruits or the stages of realization, that there should be encouragement to develop the 5 virtues and then to aspire for a favorable type of rebirth. But it seems that those who have sufficient development of meditation to be reborn in the level from the form realm up would certainly have a sufficient basis for developing the insight that can lead to liberation. So why bring in the aspiration to be reborn in those higher realms if one has already the faculty of samadhi well enough developed to serve as a basis for the wisdom that will lead to liberation? It's a bit of a...
that I should change my aspiration as I'm moving further, then it doesn't mean aspiration. It's like I've progressed in my practice.
Yeah.
So I reach this level, okay, I change my aspiration, and go to the next level, I change my aspiration.
Yeah.
So at the moment I die, that running aspiration is direct. But it doesn't mean, isn't aspiration something you have to cultivate and cultivate?
Well, the Sutta speaks about cultivating it.
Right.
But if one reaches a higher level in the practice, then I think one would be naturally disposed to change the aspiration to reach the mode of rebirth that corresponds to the capacity of one's development. For example, let's say somebody is in a lower level management position, and so he's saving up his money and he's thinking, may I get a new Toyota? I'm saving for a new Toyota. And maybe he gets a promotion and now he's getting a larger salary, so he's going to he'll be saving up but not thinking about the Toyota anymore. Let me get a Mercedes Benz. Maybe he gets promoted to the next level. And is BMW superior to a Mercedes? The same? Rolls Royce? Or do people buy Rolls Royces? Cadillac?
No.
What is beyond the Mercedes?
Maserati or something like that.
Okay, so the person he's saving up for the Mercedes, he's in higher management position. Now he gets appointed CEO, so he's going to drop the thought of buying the Mercedes, and now he's thinking about purchasing a yacht or a private plane. So with the position, then his aspiration is going to change.
Doesn't sound like a Buddhist path.
What I'm describing, or the sutta.
Oh. Why don't you just say, I aspire to be liberated?
Maybe that's the point of the sutta, actually. Because the Buddha then, he builds... In fact, you could see that almost that this is the kind of ironic approach, an ironic way of advocating the aspiration for liberation. Since the Buddha is saying that when you reach this attainment, then you can form this aspiration. You can aspire to become the Brahma ruling 1,000 worlds, 10,000 worlds, 100,000 worlds. Then you go through the successive form realms, formless realms. Then at the end, we have the monk aspires, let me be liberated from the taints. Let me reach the liberation of mind, liberation through wisdom, through the destruction of the taints. So this is put higher than all of these other attainments. So it's a way of showing that this is a superior goal, a goal that's superior to all of the other aspirations.
It's also related to a question that there's a sutta in the Samyutta. It's Samyutta 55.22. It's Mahanama, Venerable Mahanama asked the Buddha pretty much the same question, because he was kind of concerned that when he say if he dies suddenly, what would happen, right? He didn't have any aspiration for any future rebirth. And then the Buddha gave the tree simile. So like here it says, suppose a tree was leaning toward the east, slanting toward the east, inclining toward the east. When the root is cut, which way would it fall? So it seems like the Buddha said that even if one doesn't have the aspiration, if one fulfill all the virtues and achieve meditation, one would naturally get reborn into a favorable rebirth.
But it contradicts to this one. This one says you need to have aspiration.
I think this one only suggests that if you have an aspiration, it's not like if you should have an aspiration, right? I don't see whether the Buddha said whether one should have an aspiration.
Well, the Sutta to Mahanama just says that because he has developed these virtuous qualities, his mind is going to go higher. But here the Buddha is speaking about an aspiration for particular types of rebirth, or rebirth into particular realms. But then just coming back to the point you made earlier, there is another sutta where the Buddha says, he's addressing the monks, and he said that, let's see how the sutta goes. I think it goes something like, if the wanderers belonging to other sects were to ask you, are you leading the holy life under the ascetic Gautama with the hope of being reborn in a particular Deva world, wouldn't you feel sort of repelled, disgusted, and upset by that? And then the monks say yes, which is the answer that fits the Buddha's expectation. So in other words, the Buddha is trying to emphasize there that the purpose of leading the holy life is not to be reborn in one of the Deva worlds, but to attain the final Nibbana. Okay, I think Richard has something to say.
Yeah, well, on the other hand, does not need the mic. On the other hand, if you read this backwards in a way, I think it kind of explains why so many monks would aspire to a better rebirth, because they don't really want to not exist. It's like, you offer this huge variety and expanse of possible subsequent existences, and each of them with magnified power. Here you can rule over 10,000 worlds if you want, and all of that. And it's kind of like there's some greed involved in all of this. Oh yeah, fine. It's like being a super general. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then he comes there, or if you want to be really good, don't aspire to any of these, just want liberation. And I think at that point, most people balk. They say, well, I like the idea of being better, but I don't like the idea of not existing.
Yeah, it means that, I have this, what is that? They put on the desk with the name, so-and-so president.
Are they taking a
what is the name for that? Nameplate. Nameplate has to be removed. When you hand out your name card, your so-called business card, you can't say PhD, executive director of this, chairman of that, president of that. Everything is gone. Okay, it's 1:00. Actually, it's after 1:00, so we'll have to end for the day. Okay, so we'll end with 3 bows to the Buddha, half bows.